Turn, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America. Hello, this is Safani Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America. With me is our Executive Director, Al McCarn, and we are going to part 4 with the Klikas.
That's right. We are going to get right to this fourth part of the interview. We're going to learn some more about how Set Apart Ministries was founded, what the Lord did to stir in Barb and Bob and create this community. And then after that, we've got some more music and a midrash from our elders. Since in the middle of recording this, we're counting the Omer, we're going to hear a midrash that David and Barry have done about counting the Omer. And I think the audience will find that it fits very nicely with what Barb and Bob are sharing with us and with the music that we'll hear from Bill Green and from Deborah Pagel. So let's go on up to northern Wisconsin and continue our visit with the Klikas.
Even during the first Passover Seder meal that we ever went to, I don't know how many times I was interrupted by crisis phone calls and kept having to go into the other room and help people because feasts, or I would say now specifically feasts, the intensity of the opposition rises. If people are trying to get free from it, the harassment that they experience increases. So I didn't know really what to do. I was exhausted. I was just worn out, with a family at home and trying to meet the needs. I wouldn't, not hundreds, but dozens and dozens of SRA DID clients and my regular caseload. And I remember one day between sessions, I was just praying, Abba, I just don't have anything left. I don't have anything to give. And I understood in my spirit, there will be many more wounded and hurting people. So my response was, I don't think you heard me. I don't have anything left to give. I need you to do something here. I can't do this. And I heard again, there will be many more wounded and hurting people. So I think that was the big challenge, to be learning how to draw on his authority and his strength, because truly I knew I couldn't do it myself. I was still studying the word. I was still traveling as needed to study more about ritual abuse. My colleagues in Michigan, Sherry Knight and Joe Getzinger, had been in the same path, although they were primarily working with ritual abuse survivors, not other clients. They tried safe housing people. And so even the times that I was away, they had continued. So I took my clients there to make sure that I was up to speed with what was the latest of what was being understood. And they were Hebrew Christians. They have a Manna for Life congregation there too. And I think that's the first Messianic congregation I ever really became aware of. They're still there today. In 98, I remember, and I told Bob and my older daughter that I had a strong sense that I was incubating something. My journal notes at that time said I was going back and forth between total confidence and fear about whatever it was that he was leading me toward. I didn't really know. In 99, I had a really strong sense of needing to be baptized. Well, good Lutheran person that I am, I didn't want to do that again and be offensive and somehow imply that the first time didn't take, because, that's the understanding is there's one baptism, right?
Right.
So it was a long time before I finally yielded and agreed, all right, so I was going to go arrange a sprinkling. No, immersion. Needed to be full immersion. So in Wisconsin, the water's kind of stiff in the fall. So we did have to find a rather cool beach. But Janelle, my prayer partner, and Karen, our oldest daughter, we were all immersed in a baptism in the fall of 99. And later we understood that this was a mikvah of preparation for what was to come. But at the time, of course, we didn't know that.
Having been raised Catholic and baptized as a Catholic infant, I didn't need baptism. So I just stood on the sidelines and watched what was going on. It was a number of years before I understood what the baptism was. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I was immersed too.
We have 2 or 3 mikvahs every year in our community now, usually before Passover and before Sukkot. And then the third time might be Shavuot, or it might be Hanukkah. easier when we have warmer water, but we've had to use indoor pools sometimes too. So yeah, our understanding of what a mikveh is changed.
My upbringing as a Southern Baptist was immersion is the only way. But then I was
Exactly.
I was also brought up as a Presbyterian, which was no infant. You sprinkle them. That's how you baptize.
Sprinkle.
Yes.
Yeah, sprinkle. Right.
But
and bless him. That's one of Frank Hout's teachings. Which word bucket does baptism mean to you? Dunk or sprinkle or immerse or what?
What you've just said here about using the term mikveh, for example, that is one thing where our Hebraic understanding would be of so much benefit to the church, because we can cut through all that sprinkle or immerse argument and say, no, this is what it really means, what it's all about. Yes, there's believer's baptism, but there's a mikveh of preparation. There are other different purposes for this, and it's not a bad thing to go through it more than once in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But that's, it's understanding the ongoing sanctification process. And what I've understood, it seems like our traditional Christian background is so much focused on salvation. And yes, we're thankful for salvation, but it doesn't stop there. The sanctification process comes after. And I think too many people haven't understood that.
Right. And, the whole conversation here is about things that our people haven't understood, because emphasis on salvation, yes, absolutely right. But there's ever so much more to be fully equipped, disciples of Messiah, warriors of our God, a kingdom of priests, as we're called to be.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what's been such a blessing, because I don't know if you can hear it in here or not, but there are repetitive themes that it seems like has gone through my life that are part of the overall message that he's been growing in all of us here. I would not have grown in faith the way I have if I had not been challenged by coming alongside people who are under such severe trauma. I wouldn't know the difference between the joy of being in worship and experiencing his presence. That's one thing, but it's another to allow his presence and authority to move through you to help somebody else. And I wouldn't have known what that's like. I remember the first time I felt led to speak a benediction over somebody after we had done some deliverance work, and I did it, but then I was still in the Lutheran church at that time, and I called my pastor, and I kind of freaked out. It's like, I just needed to speak a benediction over somebody. Is that all right? And bless his heart, he just smiled and laughed. He said, well, if that's what God told you to do, that's what you should do. So that was tremendously helpful. So it was about this time when I was understanding these things, like you said, challenged with the depth of wickedness, and at the same time needing to know more about the depth of faith and strength and who we are and the authority we have, because you can't look at the depth of wickedness if you don't have the strength and the authority in Messiah. It'll just eat you alive. So there was a season of prayer and fasting, like once a week for many months, and then the whole month of October, I think, in 99. That's when I was given the name Set Apart Ministries, and our mission statement, Hebrews 10, 32 to 39, which talks about coming alongside those who are afflicted, and it talks about not turning back and persevering in what you're doing. So that's where that name came in. I knew it was big. I didn't know that set apart is an English translation for kadosh and holy. I didn't know that at the time, but it felt too big. And I remember bucking a little bit about that. Are you sure this is what it should be? But I've been told since then, well, now that you know it's kadosh, you should change it to Kadosh Ministries. And no, we don't feel like that. No, he gave us the name Set Apart Ministries. So we'll just stay with that.
It is good that we are learning Hebrew, but our native language here in the United States for most all of us is English. And we need to not just go wholesale into Hebrew, because there's a whole target audience out there that has no clue what kadosh means or even what language it comes from.
Right.
And I think the Apostle Paul might have said something about this, speak 5 words in a language people can understand is a whole lot better than 10,000.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So no, we're not going to change it. We're staying with what we got. That was October of 99, but I'm afraid to say, I laugh now, but it really wasn't funny. December of 99, I was already impatient. Okay, when are you going to do this? What's going to happen? Okay, 2 months. I'm ready. I'm impatient. But I understood Habakkuk 2:31, that the vision was not yet, but for the appointed time. And it would not tarry, but it would come. Right. So that was the assurance I had at that point. I also had a very personal calling from Yahweh about what he was asking of me. I don't usually go into a lot of detail about that. In June of 2000, while in prayer with several people, a word was spoken that I would need to accept the authority given to me to heal and deliver, and something about having gifts of healing that I didn't know anything about. But I was still coming to pretty Lutheran ears, so I didn't really quite fully know what to make of that. In July of that same year, it was confirmed for me through scriptures that he was doing a new thing. And I was impressed with Job's words that he could only see the edge of his power and a whisper of his ways. I was understanding, okay, this is a walk by faith, not sight or common sense thing. That was a big challenge. August of 2000, I understood he would preserve my life and it would be enough. By that time, there was a lot of stress and abandonment with friends and church family as I continued to be learning. A lot of times in the Lutheran church, even though I was going to those wonderful conferences, where people were alive in the spirit and dealing with the wickedness in grace and truth, I would come home to my congregation that had no clue about what was happening for me. So I felt like I had started in the baby pool and I was now at the deep end, and it was kind of lonely over there. Except at least I could swim over to the edge once in a while. Then when walking into Torah came into it, then my friend, my prayer partner, Janelle, she said, oh, well, now it's like swimming in the ocean. There's not even a side to go up to. Yep. And there's sharks swimming around you too. So, so that sense of where you are, that abandonment and stress, I don't think that we stopped wanting to connect with other people when we were moving and starting to understand the Hebraic understanding, but we found that a lot of people didn't know what to do with us. So things shifted that we weren't really planning on shifting. In September of that year, I had some awareness that SAM was going to be some kind of a healing community. SAM, Set Apart Ministries. Right. Some kind of an equipping ministry to provide strong walls to help the severe trauma survivors who couldn't function in a normal church. At first, we didn't have any personal family members involved. That's my clinical part. You keep that separate from your personal family. But as we continued on, we kept trying to find strong believers who would come and stand with us, thinking that these people who are so hurt, they need strong believers around them. And what kept happening is that people would look at us and they would say that things like, we're the ministry for down and outers, and they didn't want to be there. They didn't like the idea that we had people who were financially, economically poor, or people that were struggling or had emotional outbursts and things. They didn't know what to do with that. So pretty soon we understood that we needed to grow our own people. And that's kind of how it's been for these 19 years. During that time, I was given the Jeremiah verses about being made as a bronze wall, 15:20. Then I will make you a wall to this people, a fortified wall of bronze. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you, for I am with you to save you and deliver you. And 2 other people confirmed that for me completely independently. So that was a tremendous confirmation. As I was looking at this morning, it struck me that there's a connection with this that I had not seen before. As we move forward in what we're talking about here, we'll be talking about the wall in the Song of Solomon. I am a wall, declares the bride. And that's that whole understanding. It's the Hebrew word chomah, which means a wall that joins and protects and encircles. So this was an early indication of where we are now and the wall, because not only was it an individual promise that he would make you, Jeremiah, or the application to me, an individual person strong so that you won't give up when people come against you. It's also that we're being built up as living stones into the wall, which is the bride, and the wall is ultimately the temple of believers, the spiritual inhabitant. That's what we're all moving toward. I had not seen that until today, that one is included there too. Janelle and I and Bob, as he said before, had started going to that Torah study in 2000. And by 2001, we understood that, we need to lose the pagan trappings of our lives too. Otherwise, how are we going to help other people come out of it if we're still in it. So we lost about half of our survivors at that time and their support people because they wanted to stay in the more traditional church setting. And I understood I was supposed to be writing something about spiritual warfare from a Hebraic perspective. And I tried. I bought a notebook. I wrote 2 sentences in the notebook, and I never got any further than that because I had to live it first. I couldn't teach what I didn't know. I could see a few things, but not nearly what I've understood in these years since. So in 2002, in prayer times, I understood that we were to become a community, that Yahweh was building us slowly, quietly, and deeply so that we wouldn't be easily shaken. And we have definitely seen evidence of that. That's probably a whole conversation in itself. In that next year, then, we understood that our territory was being enlarged because it was also about helping to get the remnant back to the ancient paths. And that would be about the time that our friends Dean and Susan Wheelock of Hebrew Roots Ministries introduced us to Messianic Israel Alliance. And I met Bacha and Angus Wooten at a Florida conference. 2002, I think, was the first one. And I had confirmation I was of the House of Joseph during that time. And I read Bacha's book, Mama's Torah. And I saw connections with Mama's Torah and the life model and the trauma recovery and the maturity and all the things that we were talking about. So the two paths merged, even though they might seem like they're different to other people too.
This brings up something I've heard recently through Ravi Zacharias, a consummate Christian intellectual, and he's ministered to me since I was a youth. He and those around him frequently make the point of there's an old adage about the scientists struggle for years and years and years, and they finally climb up to the summit of knowledge of this mountaintop, and there they find the theologians waiting for them. So here's what you've just, 20, 25 years, a lifetime, a career of learning this life model, the maturity model, trauma recovery, and you find it all neatly written out in what Bacha Wooten has taken from the scripture in Mama's Torah, which is a great little book, but it's, what is the role of women? What is the role of mothers, of grandmother? And what is this, let me use gender-charged language here, feminine side of the Torah? That if we don't have it, we're incomplete, and we are, I would say, ineffective. But my point is, you've gone through all of this learning to find out it's all from the Bible anyway.
Exactly. And I was questioning, so Father God, why did you take me through all that mental health stuff if this is where I was going to be? And I understood that I was kind of partializing it a little bit too much, because the truth is we are spiritual beings, but we also have soul and body. The soul is the mind, will, and emotions. So Mama's Torah, the understanding Proverbs 1, 8, and 9, we're not supposed to forget either Papa's Torah or Mama's Torah.
Right.
And the understanding that I've understood without going into a whole bunch of detail is we did word studies on this. Papa's Torah is generally understood to be the knowledge of the word, and Mama's Torah in general is character development, honesty, integrity, all those kind of people relational skills. And in Proverbs, it's related to an ornament on your head and chains about your neck, which I just thought were necklaces until I did some study. And it's no, it's more like a bridle. Learning the word is one rein, and the interpersonal and that relationship is the other. So the chains about your neck guide you on a straight path if you listen and remember both of them. And unfortunately, this is where we think that Set Apart Ministries is kind of called to step in there, because although we do teach Torah, Mama's Torah is our primary focus. And so it's kind of like our understanding is we're to be an Ezer Kenegdo, a helpmeet to the body of Messiah, and maybe help redress the gap. Because I probably can't prove this, but I really think that a lot of the reason we have so many different denominations of Christianity and all these different tracks, I forget how many there are now, in part it has to do with people not being mature and not having all those character skills in place that allow them to correctly interpret Papa's Torah. And so if you try to just jump the line and move all the way over there without having the foundation, you can go off at some pretty skewed things. I mean, there's other reasons too. but that's part of it.
So we're at 2002, 2003. You've met the Wootons. You're introduced to the MIA, and all of this begins to come together. So then what?
Yeah, well, then there was more of the fine tuning and the pruning. Remember I said I thought I only wanted a little pruning on the edges, that I thought maybe that would be enough. I would never need any major pruning again. No, that's not the case. There's more major pruning to come.
And now, Mashiach Ben David by Deborah Pagel. You can find more of Deborah's music at setapartministries.org.
There is a hand I wanna hold. There is a face that I long to see. There is a voice that I often hear. Mashiach Ben David. There's someone there, someone who knows what I'm thinking of. He knows the dreams that I'm dreaming of. Mashiach Ben David. You are the one I live my life for. My groom you will be. You are the one I've been waiting for. Mashiach Ben David. You are the one that I live my life for. My groom you will be. You are the one I've been waiting for. Mashiach Ben David. There is a hand I wanna hold. There is a face that I long to see. There is this voice that I often hear. Mashiach Ben David. There's someone there, someone who knows what I'm thinking of. He knows the dreams I've been dreaming. Mashiach Ben David. You are the one that I live my life for. My groom you will be. You are the one I've been waiting for. Mashiach are the one I've been waiting for. Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to this week's Midrash of the B'nai Yosef North America Project Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones, and with me today is Barry Phillips, fellow elder. How are you today, Barry?
I'm doing well, going through my processes, and well.
I like you said that, going through your processes. It's like I want to talk a little bit about that because we're all in progress. We're all a work in progress, but sometimes there are certain times and seasons that we all go through the process together. And these are, of course, I'm talking about the Moedim, all the appointed times. And we're not here to talk specifically about that today, but I want to talk a little bit about how these things work in the process. I mean, have you noticed... I know it's not just me. Have you noticed that right before all the Moedim, it seems like everything just kind of comes unhinged. Everything that you thought was taken care of, it just starts to come out, and all these things you thought was done long ago comes back, and things resurface, and you're like, where did this come from, and how did I get here? And it's like all these things keep coming up, and there's a purpose to that. That's actually kind of designed that way. We say we just want to focus on the Father, and we just want to enter into His presence, and we just want to come and have a good time and rejoice and fellowship before Him. But yet there's all this stuff. What do I do with all this stuff?
I have indeed recognized that. Two cases in point very quickly. I don't know how many times, but very often it has been the case almost every year that somewhere within a few weeks of Sukkot, there is some upset, some relational issue. Someone's not happy about where we're going. There's a falling out between individuals, and someone ends up not coming because they are uncomfortable even being around the other person. I had a congregational about split in half one time a number of years ago. I mean, and it's like every year prior to school, everyone's excited. We're getting to go. It's going to be great. And then the earthquake hits. And so I just kind of hold my breath from the first of Tishri on to the end of Sukkot. Last year, it was during Sukkot. And it's like, oh, my goodness. Anyway, and then currently, David, we are counting the Omer, counting the number of days from the presentation of first fruits after Pesach until, you count 7 Shabbats and you come to the 49th day. You add 1 to the 50th day, and we're now at Shavuot. Acts 2 is the famous gathering of everyone in Jerusalem for what the King Jimmy calls Pentecost or Shavuot.
You still get me with that, King Jimmy.
Huh?
You still get me with that, King Jimmy.
The King Jimmy. This outpouring of the Ruach, the giving of the Torah, it being indelibly imprinted upon our heart, that doesn't happen without preparation. And these interim counting days, I don't know about anyone else, but it's almost every year that the ugly that we have swept under the rug, hidden in a closet, locked in a dungeon, forgotten about, painted over, whatever picture you want to use there, it starts coming to the surface. And I groan, oh, Father, I'm dealing with this again. Relations, expectations, stuff that it's inside us, mindsets, habits, preoccupations, tendencies, all of that stuff comes rising to the surface. And it's Yah's way of saying, deal with this so that when I pour out my Ruach upon you, that you are a fit vessel for it.
You know, two things come to mind. I mean, a lot of things come to mind, but two things in particular come to mind when you're talking about this is, one, Yeshua, when he says, so if you come to bring your gift at the altar and realize your brother has aught against you, leave your offering there, go make it right, then come back and make your offering.
Sure.
And the idea there is that you come back. That's why he didn't say take your offering with you, because then you're like, well, we're good now. And then you keep it there, right?
Yeah.
So leave it there, go make amends with your brother, and then come back. And then the other thing that comes to mind is before, the creator of heaven and earth and everything that we are and everything here stepped down on earth and spoke with his people in the wilderness to where they could hear his voice audibly. He told them to do something first. He said, I'm going to come down there in 3 days. Prepare. Make preparations. Be clean. And so that is still in effect today, I believe. Before all the Moedim and these appointed times, and so we're talking about counting the Omer. I don't think counting the Omer is one of the actual Moed, but yes, looking forward to Shavuot is, and the counting the Omer is a part of that, right? And so we're looking forward and expecting what the Father is doing. At the same time, are we willing to go through the process of dealing with ourselves so that we can approach when the time comes? You know, when Yahweh came down, all the people were scared, but Moshe is the one that went up. Why were they all scared if they were prepared? Now, granted, I'm not going to minimize the fact of what they saw, and that is terrifying. And I would venture to say if any of us saw something like that, we might be scared too. But why is it that Moshe was the only one that went up and no one else did? Because they backed off. To be scared is one thing, but to back off from the presence of God, let's not put ourselves in that situation. Let's make these preparations so when he comes down and he says, don't worry, come closer, we'll do that.
David, if you and I are guitarists, we like amps and pedals and guitars and all of that wonderful, wonderful equipment.
Preach it, brother. Yes.
But for any of that to work outside of the acoustic guitar arena, there has to be electricity. You have to get plugged in.
That's good, yeah.
Someone who's not into that kind of thing might be interested to know that when you plug a guitar amp into a wall socket, especially if it's of a tube amp or variety, there is huge amounts of voltage going through the components, the capacitors and the tubes and all of that kind of thing. If you're not properly grounded, if things are not properly grounded, or the pedals, the amps are not functioning correctly, and then you reach down to your guitar and you put your fingers on metal strings, there is lethal voltages in there that can kill you. There are guitarists who have died on stage because there was a short somewhere and the electricity was detrimental to their heart.
Barry, I was playing once and there was a thunderstorm outside.
Oh.
And lightning struck close by and I got shocked. I got hit.
I was playing through an old amp with just 2 prongs, did not have the 3-prong modern setup. And if you turn it the wrong way, the polarization of it is wrong. I was playing through that amp, stepped up to the mic to say something other, and a spark flew from the metal mic to my teeth.
Oh man.
Oh, that, I got to tell you what, that hurt. That hurt bad. And I didn't even know what caused it. All that aside, the point I'm trying to make is not about guitars and amps. It's about when there is not proper spiritual grounding in our lives, and then you add the current, the flow, and the operation of the Ruach HaKodesh, it can be lethal. It can be detrimental. You can shock people. You can harm yourself. The gifting is not used to honor and glorify Yahweh, but it is used to control and manipulate others or to grandize yourself. All of these things, if we don't get the junk out, just the minor junk, if we don't get all of that out and the counting of the Omer and deal with their stuff, and then we're asking for the outpouring of the Ruach to come at Shavuot, we got problems, not just for ourselves, but anyone around us.
You know, I've said before, and don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. I don't mean this in any kind of malicious way. It's just, in my eyes, it's just a fact. We cry out for the presence of Yah in our midst, but I think it's an act of mercy that we don't see that the way we desire to, because if we did, there would be dead bodies everywhere.
I 100% agree with you.
It's kind of like a Ananias and Sapphira kind of a thing. So I'm gonna, while you were on this, I'm gonna jump back really quick to the guitar terminology so we can move forward. Not to harp on that, but you said something about a tube amp, and when you plug it in, there's wisdom in tube guitar amplifiers. When you first plug it in and you click it on, you hear, and it takes a minute for the current to run through everything and for the actual sound to come out of the amplifier. And in that, while you were talking about these things, it's like, well, if we're working the same way, you know, the Ruach flowing through us and everything, we need to take that minute before we speak. And to be able to discern within ourselves, one, what we're saying, and two, is this something from me or is this something from somewhere else, from Yah?
Uh-huh.
And it's so many people know if I think it, it's God, and that's not true. You know, this is why we have relationships. This is why ideally we're in a community somewhere. I know that can't happen for everybody, but ideally we're in a community somewhere where we can benefit from one another in relationships and help each other out and talk to each other and say, am I on course here? Am I on track? And I think we need to learn from that.
Well, you know, over and over again, we're shown through Rav Shaul's writings in particular that the purpose of gifting, the purpose of the Ruach's flow, it's twofold. The Torah is very clear that the Ruach there is to inscribe the Torah upon our heart. Rav Shaul agrees with that, and he also encourages that the gifting is to edify other people, the body. If whatever the Ruach HaKodesh is doing in us and through us is not edifying others, then what is it really that's going on there? Is it for our personal edification, and that's all? You know, the result of Shavuot, the celebration with the 11 loaves and the dance and the rejoicing for the giving of the Torah and the outpouring of the Ruach, are people leaving edified, built up, encouraged, and walking in that for days and weeks afterwards? Or did we just personally have our grand moment and others are kind of just left in the shadows? What's going on?
That's a good point. We need to be able to leave from there just full of joy and everything, because then we enter into the summer when there's no major Moedim in the summer. And so there's this season that we're going to have to go through where it's hot and it's dry and it's sticky and there's testing and there's things that happen in there. But that's why we are just filled with his presence. I liken that to Yeshua after, you know, he did his mikvah with Yochanan, then he went into the wilderness. You know, to me, it's a very similar experience. And so when we gather, if we're prepared, I think we'll not just have that fill of joy and oneness with Yah, but with each other too.
You know, I'm thinking about Yeshua being in the wilderness, and it says that he came out full of the Ruach. And the first thing that happened is he went in the synagogue and stood up and prophesied from Isaiah about himself and was rejected. Man, you talking about an emotional letdown, but he chose to rise up and keep going. And for the outpouring of the Ruach for us at Shavuot, that may be the case as you're describing the hot, dry summer. Those around us may not appreciate it, but we need to be prepared to walk in it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, Barry, we are about out of time for this time. So already. But I think the good point to kind of leave with is the fact that let's search ourselves, not necessarily search our brother. Let's search ourselves so that we can prepare ourselves to be in the presence of the Most High. And then that will encourage us for whatever lies ahead, no matter what men do. So any final thought to add to that?
Just to encourage folks, please send us your thoughts, comments, suggestions for Midrash to Reunion Roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
Here's Bill Green from Ruach Ministries in Brandon, Florida, singing his original composition, The Dove.
Called for submission, though I feel lonely, I can't be afraid. I know that you're near me, I'm keeping the faith. Oh, keeping the faith. Just want to be close, and I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, 'cause I just want to be close, and I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, and mark my life by the dove. Big world around me, though I try to forget it, but I won't let go of what's underneath. I'll trust in you, Father, I'm keeping the faith. Oh, keeping the faith. And I just want to be close, I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, 'cause I just want to be close, and I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, and mark my life by the dove. Vessel is waging, I search deep with fear. Is there when I'm drowning? Your arms always there. So I just want to be close, and I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, 'cause I just want to be close, I just want to love. Fill me full with your spirit, and mark my life by the dove.
And that was Bill Green of Ruach Ministries. That is our Elder David Jones congregation. Zephaniah, I really like this original music by Bill Green. His song, The Dove, is an echo to what we heard from Deborah Pagel, her song, Mashiach ben David. Both of them minister to me in that they're expressing the longing that is in us to be closer to our Creator and to his Messiah, who is the means by which we come closer to him. How do you think that fits with the testimony that Barb and Bob were sharing with us?
As you can see in Barb and Bob's testimony, they were talking about the different things that, first of all, that they were confronted with, that they were being taken away from their relationship with the Father. And as the Father started speaking to their hearts and they started drawing closer, you could see it. That was really something that really ties into those two songs. Drawing closer to the Father and a relationship with him, and knowing the power of the Holy Spirit in your life as well.
This longing to connect with our Creator, to be in a personal relationship with him, it's very strong urge. But what we've heard from the Klikas, particularly with Barb explaining how the spiritual realm and spiritual warfare were uncovered to them, it seems to me that quite often in our journeys, this longing to be close to the Creator produces some unexpected results. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He works all things together for good. Those are the one things that you could be on a road to running away from him, and you found out that there's no place you can run and no place you can hide. In the end, you're being drawn closer because of those decisions that you made.
This does mesh with what we heard from Barry and David, their midrash entitled The Omer and Purging. So here we are in the middle of counting the Omer this year between Passover and Pentecost, or Pesach and Shavuot, to use the Hebrew terms. This is a period of purification. You know, I think of the original occasion that was recorded in Scripture when the people of Israel traveled from Egypt all the way to Mount Sinai during that 50-day period. And of course, Jewish tradition says the Torah was given on Mount Sinai at Shavuot, at Pentecost. There was an element of purging that happened to them. There was the golden calf incident. There were other things that happened to cause them to straighten up and cause to purge the rebels from the camp. Is that a picture of what happens within each of us?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense that the spiritual reality that Barb was talking about, those spiritual rebels are those demonic forces in us that, sometimes just the subtle things like bitterness. We can have spirits of accusation manifesting through us, and before we know it, it's like, did I just say that? And to confront the fact that there is this ongoing battle of two kingdoms trying to manifest. Either we submit to his kingdom and let that manifest through us, or we'll be submitting to another kingdom and that will manifest.
That's right. As the Apostle Paul says, we can be slaves to sin or slaves to Messiah. And that's always been the choice. But, we've got multiple enemies we're fighting here. There is the world, there is the flesh, there is the devil.
Yes.
What Barb was sharing with us, that's highlighted the fight against the devil, the spiritual forces of darkness. But quite often the enemies are within, and those are probably the hardest of all to fight.
Yes, definitely.
But we will hear some more about that very topic next week when we conclude our visit with Barb and Bob Klika. We will have another midrash from our elders and more music to enlighten our spirits and to help us to enter into the spirit of worship. So thank you for joining us here on this edition of Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn along with Zephaniah Pappas, and we wish you a Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.